All right, hi, everybody. We're gonna have 4 public hearings tonight, and then our regular plan commission meeting will follow that. So tonight during the public hearings, if you wish to speak, we'll list off the public hearing. We'll have a little presentation on what it is, and then if you wish to speak, you come up to the podium, state your name and address. And then if there's questions that need to be answered, we'll address them. And after that, if there's more questions, we can go back and forth. All right. With that, I'll call the joint public hearings and plan commission meeting to order at the Richard Young Fire Station on February 26, 2025 at 6:32 PM. Roll call, please.
President Osterman,
Here.
trustee Plotecker,
Here.
trustee Quinn,
Here.
Commissioner Alhaffen,
Here.
Commissioner Eberly,
Here.
Commissioner Howard,
Here.
Commissioner McCormick,
Here.
Commissioner McDonald,
Here.
Planner Sumwalt,
Here.
Attorney Macy,
Here.
Engineer Lysis is present and in the audience, Administrator Green,
Here.
and Clerk Capazzo Ketch to record the minutes.
Notice given that a joint public hearing would be held by the Lisbon Village Board and Plan Commission on Wednesday, February 26th, starting at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Memorial Fire Station at North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road to solicit public comments on the following items. We have hearing number 1, proposed amendments to the various sections of the Lisbon Municipal Code, Chapter 11 zoning. Warren.
Thank you. So looking back at my calendar, it was a year ago in February when we kicked off this zoning code update project. And here we are back to have our public hearing and to review the public hearing draft of the document. So if you remember back, we started working on section 4 and overhauling the conditional use section. And then we brought that back to a couple meetings for feedback from the Plan Commission. We then went through some of the other portions of the code to make further updates. A lot of the notable changes were in the memo to the Plan Commission that was in your packet materials, kind of summarizing what portions of the code we've touched with our update. These changes range from, removing all the former references to the town as we're now a village, to striking the outdated references to Waukesha County processes and reviews that are no longer applicable, as we're an incorporated community now. The most specific change, I guess, that I would reference from the last you saw of this would be regarding the multifamily residential district. The Plan Commission had requested that the multifamily be removed in looking at what the ramifications of that would be. The parcels in the village that do have residential multifamily zoning would no longer have zoning if we removed that completely from the zoning code. And we would have to assign new zoning to those parcels, which would involve a different type of public hearing notice and notification than what had been done for this meeting. What we also realized was that during our shoreline zoning process, we rezoned the mobile home park to residential multifamily. It had previously been, I believe, M2. And so I don't know that that was one of the parcels that we discussed at our last Plan Commission meeting when we talked about the ones that were out there potentially becoming non-conforming. And so the RM has been updated. Again, this is the biggest change since the Plan Commission saw this document, to reflect that the district allows for, and the purpose of it is to allow for the mobile home park community that existed prior to the adoption of this zoning code update. And it allows as a permitted use the mobile home park community that existed prior to the adoption of this date, subject to being connected to municipal sewer. And so the rest of the intent of the district that did acknowledge residential multifamily and those densities has been removed. It still by default would allow for single and 2-family residential, as it did previously. So that is the reason that is in that code, the draft in front of you that way. So if there's any questions from the plan commission regarding that, I'd be happy to help try to answer those. Otherwise, if there's any questions regarding any of the other items outlined in the staff memo, we can go back and try to answer any questions pertaining to those.
Any questions from the commission at this time? Okay. Questions on anything within the chapter 11 zoning in the commission at this time? Public comment. Is there anyone here for this item tonight? No, nobody wishes it. Anyone wish to speak on it tonight? All right. Anyone on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak during the public hearing for Chapter 11 zoning code revisions, please use the raise hand function. No hands raised on Zoom.
Final call for any questions or anything from the planning commission on this? Nope. Close public hearing number 1 and go to public hearing number 2 is proposed amendments to the various sections of the Lisbon Municipal Code, Chapter 12, Land Division and Development. Warren?
I'll take this one.
Thanks, Dan.
So the revisions for chapter 12 started similar to chapter 11. I think the intent was to remove references to the town and update with the village. Chapter 12 was just recently revised in 2021, but there were some changes that were done after that this addresses, and you have those list of changes in front of you. The significant ones are obviously changing village instead of town. Addendum A was removed regarding supplemental design standards. That is in chapter 11, so it was duplicated in chapter 12, so that reduced the size of chapter 12 significantly. And street and highway standard exhibits were actually updated in the 21 update, but they weren't reflected on this draft as I was working on it. And then just a few tweaks to cul-de-sac extensions regarding waivers beyond 600 feet. And then updating the CSM timeframes from 6 months to a year to be filed with the Register of Deeds. And that's in line with the Wisconsin state statutes.
Questions from the commission? Joe?
I've just got a couple of minor comments. And I guess I want to make, and it's hard to reference, in section 800, specifically 809. Do we have everything covered? My concern is because we talk about other utilities such as gas, electric, cable TV, and telephone. Does that include internet and communication facilities? Because when this was written, there was no internet. I'm sure they're going to put it in, but I mean, should we put something in there? I don't know what the proper term would be.
I guess I would defer to the attorney on that, whether that language can be added after the public hearing, if it's a significant change.
Yeah, I don't think that it would be a substantial change, that you would have to give a new notice, Mr. Administrator. So, I don't know. I'll defer to others who may know what the proper wording is. The problem is, do you want to require internet placement when it's sometimes goes wireless? Or they have, discs and they use other forms of internet. So I don't know that that's what communities are requiring every developer to put in wired internet service.
Well, I'll defer to the rest of the commission. If it's not a concern with anybody else, and I'm not going to be concerned about it. That's the only thing. And I had a few other minor tweaks, but they're not substantive, so I don't have any problem with anything else that's with the revised ordinance.
Mitch, can you jump on the mic? You'll have to switch it on. Yep.
Got it. The term cable can be used for internet as well. So in the industry that that term is used for running cable for internet service and communications, so.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Do you want me to leave that on?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
All right, we'll open it up then for public comment. Is anyone here for hearing number 2? Figure if no one here for number 1, probably not number 2, but you never know. Anyone on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom has comments regarding the revisions to Chapter 12, Land Division and Development, please use the raise hand function. No hands on Zoom.
Call from anyone on hearing number 2? Anything else from staff? All right, close hearing number 2 then. We'll move on to hearing number 3. Request by Nolan and Alyssa Glazewski. Did I say that correctly? Sorry if I didn't. Red Wing Kennels for an amendment to the existing animal boarding place, commercial kennel conditional use permit to reflect new ownership of the business and property located at North 51 West 22289 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0288.995.
Yeah, so this is an existing business in the community that was purchased by this family in the recent past, and they are here to get a new CU to reflect that updated ownership. They have a residence on the property, and all of the infrastructure is existing from the previous owners of the business. They've made some improvements and are basically just looking to continue the level of service that they've been providing in the community. As far as the use goes, it is allowed as a conditional use in the zoning district that they are located in, which is the A10 district. The property is heavily vegetated, especially around the perimeter of the property, so there's good buffering between them and adjacent land uses. They do state that outdoor activities are supervised when the animals are in the outside play area. The main building that houses the kennels for dogs has been insulated according to the submittal materials to provide additional noise buffering. And there are flushable floor drains in that building as well for cleanup. The petitioners are as far as parking, requesting a waiver. If you look at the size of the buildings and what the standard is for what their use falls into, they'd be required to provide 32 off-street parking spaces, which they just simply don't need. They've been successfully operating the business with much fewer parking stalls than that for a long time. And so they're looking to just maintain what they have. And the Plan Commission can grant waivers in such instances, subject to the factors that are laid out in both staff review. So they've got 8 off-street parking stalls according to their submittal materials. And again, the way that their business is operated, most folks are dropping off or picking up. That's done at staggered intervals by appointment, and they are not providing dog daycare services. And so there's not as much traffic as with that type of business at this location. The petitioners are in the audience if there's any specific questions for them.
Questions this time from the commission? No. The applicant wishes to state anything at this time? You're not required to, I'm just giving the opportunity to.
Yeah, like Orin said, it's just a
Just state your name and address if you would.
Nolan Glazewski, North 51 West 22289 Lisbon Road. Yeah, we're just looking at updating the documentation with the village to reflect the new ownership, no changes of operations or plans for expansion or that nature.
I'm open up for public comments. Is anyone here for this hearing? 3 for 3, I think.
If anyone on Zoom has comments for this public hearing, please use the raise hand function. No hands raised.
Commission then at this time? Final call from anyone? You said no, Joe?
No.
Okay. Final call from staff, or anyone in the audience? All right, close public hearing number 3 then. We'll go to public hearing number 4. Request by applicant Ryan Fritz to Newman Developments on behalf of owners David and Mary Horn to rezone approximately 74-acre portion of the parcel located at North 68 West 26098 Silver Spring Drive, LSBT 0221.999.017 from the A10 agricultural district to the R2 single family residential district. No changes are proposed to the remaining 22 acres of the parcel that are located within the C1 Conservancy wetland and floodplain or shoreline overlay districts. All right, you starting this one off, Warren?
I will. This was just recently before the Plan Commission at the January 22nd meeting for a concept review. So the petitioners are returning here with a formal request to rezone to allow for the single-family residential subdivision that they are looking to build. Property is currently, the base zoning is A10. There's also a significant amount of C1 and a little bit of shoreline overlay district in the southwest corner of the parcel. The C1 will match the wetland delineation that had been done. If you look at your rezoning exhibit that was passed out by the village clerk, you can see the areas that are proposed to be rezoned to R2 and then the lands to be rezoned to C1. Again, the C1 is primarily in the northern portion of the property, which would be either an area that will be an outlet of the concept plan for the subdivision plat, or the portion that'll be chunked off as a CSM for the Horns to retain for their own personal use. So the remainder, again, would be rezoned to R2. As far as the items that had come up during the concept review pertaining to the topic of trails and the potential termination of Edgewood Drive, I would typically address those through either a certified survey map or the preliminary plat process rather than conditioning the rezoning on something like that. Really either way, but nobody had any issues with the density, which is consistent with the land use plan. So I think if it behooves the Plan Commission, we can address those items at that time.
Warren, can you give an explanation, I guess, what all happened with the conceptual review? That there was no action taken?
Right, yeah, so during a concept review, a developer is just looking for feedback from the Plan Commission. It's an open discussion. In this case, as usual, there's no action taken. The Plan Commission brings up topics that they that caught their eye during their preliminary review of the concept plan, or things that were brought to their attention by myself as the planner or from the developer. Again, some of the things that were talked about at that meeting were trails and the terminus of Edgewood Drive, and then the other connections that are being made and access off of Silver Spring Drive. We talked about the petitioner's intent to do that certified survey map to create the parcel on the north end for the Horns to retain, and what the ramifications of that would be for access for that parcel. Overall, I think the concept plan was received positively by the Plan Commission, subject to those items that the petitioner was going to bring back further information on.
We should probably know there was extensive discussion about whether or not I'm sorry, I don't have my.
Edgewood Drive. Yeah.
Edgewood Drive should be extended, and it was the consensus, but no action taken, that it would not be extended, but that it would have to have some kind of terminus or T-turnaround or something, because it's a temporary situation at the moment. And if this is would be developed as proposed, it would become sort of more of a permanent situation, in that in all practicality, something would have to happen, but that road after discussion was the consensus, but not a decision of the village board or or even the plan commission, that that road would not need to be extended as part, did I state that correctly, Mr. Chairman?
I remember we had several talks about it, and I believe that at the time that was discussed that it would not be continued. I am not on that. I don't agree with that decision. I think it should definitely be continued, in my opinion. I don't think it's gonna. That impact of what I'm seeing on the maps here is all as much as what it's being made out to be, but. I mean, the commission is the one that's gotta decide it, so.
I just, that may be an issue to the people here, and so I thought we would just explain that, and the rest of it speaks for itself, so I don't need to
Right.
comment on that, but that might be of concern to people.
I think where we left that off, the petitioner was going to bring back, after having their engineers look at it, how they might be able to do a terminus within the right of way for Edgewood.
A T turnaround or a
Right.
small cul-de-sac or something.
Right.
We have to do something. We can't leave it as it is.
Right. Questions or anything from the commission at this time? Rob, anything? Sean? Sherry, Joel?
Paula has a comment on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, my one question is, I am a bit familiar with that area. There's a lot of wetlands back there. Does that play into the development project at all?
I can address that. So the area that is on the north end that is primarily zone C1 is going to be, the intent is to break it off via a certified survey map to create a parcel for the Horns to retain. The C1 district does not allow very much development, if any. But I think their intent was to retain it for hunting purposes, which would be one of the few things that is allowed. And so that would work out just fine. Again, one of the things we talked about with that was access. The logical point of access for that, should a parcel be created there, would be Edgewood Drive. And again, we had the discussions about the terminus of Edgewood associated with that.
Thank you.
Yep.
But to make it clear, that parcel is really not part of the development or even the rezoning, is it, if it's C1? Explain that, because
It's part of this current parcel. So we're looking at the property boundaries the way they exist today. There hasn't been a plat submitted yet. And so that portion of the site is entirely C1. And that is outside of where the concept plan shows any of the subdivision development.
so that would not be rezoned as part of this. That would remain C1.
The reason we're including it is that they had an updated wetland delineation and we're matching that as opposed to just keeping it the same as what it is on our maps today.
But what I'm trying to explain to the plan commissioners, because they already know, we really know, if they sell that parcel off, we don't have any jurisdiction anymore as to the use of that parcel, or, that's not part of the subdivision and it wouldn't be part of the deed restrictions. The use of that
Correct.
parcel would be regulated by the zoning. I don't want to
Correct.
get into a big, since the trustee asked the question, I want to make it clear, it's really not part of the future development. It's only on the map tonight because it's part of the parcel, but it's not being rezoned and it's not being developed.
Right. The small portion of wetland that is in the far northeast corner of the northeast part of the parcel that's going to be developed as the subdivision will have.
Lauren, can you screen share that?
Yeah, that's a good time to pause and do that. Thank you, Lisa.
That way the people on Zoom can see what we're looking
Yeah,
at.
thanks, Elisa. I appreciate that.
Cut off things that they're gonna start into, maybe that really we don't.
Okay, now I've got the parcel up. I've got the property boundary highlighted. Bring up our environmental layer. There you go. That shows the parcel boundaries. The green on the map would be the wetland areas.
And again, that's not rezoned.
These are gonna be C1 and stay C1. This area over here is gonna be within a planned outlot of the subdivision that would be under the control of the association moving forward should a plat be approved and the deed restrictions and protective covenants get recorded for that plat. But again, this whole northern area would, the conceptual plan was to create a certified survey map for the horns to retain all of that, and that would stay C1 zoned.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Joe, can you angle your mic down?
I'm sorry. On the concept plan, the northeast portion of this existing parcel, which is indicated as outlot number 2, and the CSM, is that not going to end up being landlocked?
We don't know.
Okay, I mean, we may not talk about it tonight, but we'll sure as heck gonna talk about it when we get CSM. So I'm just raising that issue.
No, it stretches, there's a portion of it that comes down to the road. And then it actually loops around that cul-de-sac on the left side of it as well. And connects all the way around.
But technically, well, I have to wait and see what CSM is, but outlot 2, is that in fact going to be the question is, and we can't answer it tonight because we don't have the CSM in front of us. Is outlot 2 going to be part of this development? If it is, then it's not landlocked. If it isn't, and it's a separate parcel, then it's gonna be landlocked.
Yeah, I think outlot 2 contains all of, well, not all of, but a good chunk of the stormwater basins for the development. So that is gonna be part of the proposed.
Yeah, I'm worried about
Plan.
the part on, looking at the concept plan, the part that's not green.
But the green is also part of outlot 2.
Okay,
Outlot 2 is much larger than just the C1 zoned
Okay.
area.
then I assume the CSM is gonna show outlot 2 as being an outlot to the subdivision and not part of what will be the lot that will be carved off to the north. And we don't know that because we haven't seen it, but
That's Orin represented that he, with his cursor, and it was hard for you to see, he
Yeah.
showed that part would be part of the subdivision, is proposed to be part of the subdivision as part of the outlot, which is a much larger than just that and wraps all the way around.
okay, we'll wait and see what CSM says. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on the commission? All right, staff at this moment. Open up for public comment then. Anyone who wishes to speak, step up to the podium, state your name and address. Somebody's got to start it off.
So Gail Groth, W265 and 6944 Thousand Oaks Drive. So just to start off, it does sadden me to see more open farmland disappear, but we knew this day would eventually come. So my main concern with the construction of the subdivision is how water drainage will be managed. This land borders property in Thousand Oaks that includes a pond, which currently receives runoff from the surrounding area. An easement allows water to flow across the farmland into the ditch along Silver Spring. However, this proposed extension of the road by Wilderness Way would block this route. I'm also worried about the location of the basins and ponds within the new subdivision, as our pond cannot handle any additional water drainage. I hope we can collaborate to find a solution that ensures proper drainage for both the new development and the existing Thousand Oaks subdivision next to this land. Thank you.
Would like to go next?
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Al Sweebelhofer, North 70, West 2626 Edgewood Drive. I am the last house on Edgewood Drive. And my concern is also stormwater when it comes off whatever construction happens. Right now, my sub pump runs every 5 minutes for 3 months. And I was wondering where all this stormwater was gonna go. Will it go into the C1 district? That's my concern, is the stormwater.
Who else would like to speak?
James enters N68W26614 Wilderness Way. For reference, my property is just west of the proposed development. So I don't know that this question is going to get answered. It sounds like it's not, but discussions are already rolling, so I think it's important for you guys to hear some concerns, especially from neighbors on Wilderness Way. I'm seeing this up close for the first time, and it does look like it confirms that they're gonna extend Wilderness Way, which is my primary concern. I'm not opposing the rezoning. I think developments are good for the village, as long as the village treads carefully and considers how that can adversely affect the surrounding neighborhoods. And it sounds like you are being very careful about that. So that would be my primary concern, is getting rid of the current cul-de-sac or dead end of Wilderness Way. And, you know, that was one of the reasons I bought that property. It was on a dead end. I have two small children. I knew that there wasn't going to be a lot of traffic. I knew it was going to be private. There's other families on that cul-de-sac with small children, and I know that they share the same thoughts with that as well. So I think the increased traffic is a concern, increased pedestrian traffic. I don't have data in front of me right now, but property values could certainly be impacted on Wilderness Way now that it, or if this is approved, it would not be a dead end anymore, which is a desirable thing to a property to purchase. So again, I know that this decision isn't going to be made tonight, but I wanted to express some concerns early. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one comment that was sent in for reading tonight from Tom and Lisa Nowitzki. We are unable to attend the public hearing in regards to the request to rezone the Horn Farm to residential. First, we are happy for the Horn family and excited for them. Second, development is inevitable, and the subdivision proposed by Newman is both mindful of the area and respectful of the environmental impact. Our household, which is directly adjoining the new subdivision, supports the proposed plan. Thank you. And they are from North 68 West 26510 Wilderness Way. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, Raymond Growth, W265 and 6944 Thousand Oaks Drive. I am the property to the west. We are on the pond, and my main concern is the pond. We currently are required by the county to pump the pond to keep it at its main level. There's no exit for that water. All the water from the farm field as it is seeps into the ground, and it hits a sandbar and comes out the bottom of my yard. So even if there's a retainage in the new subdivision, it's gonna seep out into our yard and fill up the pond. We now currently take 5 feet of water out of that half-acre pond every single year, and we have to pump it across Wilderness Way along the ditch in Silver Spring. So if we're putting the road across there, we need to have a way to continue to pump our water through that. There is a detention basin shown on this plan, and I'm not sure how the drainage is working. So we just, as long as we're making sure that the water is not draining into our pond, and we're still given the right to pump the pond, then we're okay. But right now I have a lot of concerns about us just getting flooded out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Vogt, and we're from North 69 West 25900 Brighton Drive. And I would like to echo the same concerns that just this gentleman had. We're on a cul-de-sac right now, and we have small children in the neighborhood, and I'm very concerned about the increased traffic. And this also is the first time that I'm seeing this map, so that was going to be one of my questions, if it was going to attach to our road. It looks like in the center, there is a road where they'll be able to get in through Silver Spring Drive. So I guess that's a plus. My other concern is that, you know, when we first moved out here, 164 in Silver Spring was a stop sign and 2 lanes, and that's it. And the speed limit on Silver Spring is 55 miles an hour. Obviously, our population has grown exponentially since then, and yet the speed limit is still 55 miles an hour. It's already a problem getting out of our subdivision with all of the new residences that are out here. And I'm hoping that somebody will finally do something to lower the speed limit
Let you
on
know.
that street.
You gotta go to the, is it county or state?
County.
County on that
County.
one.
You know, I've gone through several people and I just keep getting excuses. You know, nobody's died
Talk
yet,
to
so we're
us.
not gonna change it.
Give us a call at the village
Yeah.
hall and talk to Dan or Lisa, and they can give you
Yeah.
some direction on who to contact for that. I'm not gonna tell you something's gonna change, but they can
Right.
give you some people to contact.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just hoping that, I don't know if there's probably not a way to reconstruct this where we can keep our cul-de-sacs, but I am concerned about all the increased traffic. So, thank you.
So we got 5 comments. I'm gonna freeze it there and we're gonna go through these comments. Most of them are all, like Mitch is gonna step up here and make a few comments on the stormwater. I'll be right back to you.
Yeah, so I do appreciate all the comments that are coming from local residents from around the area. This question always does come up. Unfortunately, I don't have a stormwater management plan to review right now, a site grading plan to review, but your comments are duly noted. I will make sure that we are doing that review process, that we are looking to make sure that the water is not flowing directly on neighboring properties, that it's being conveyed through ditches and sent through the stormwater facilities that are on site. But that being said, those facilities that are being constructed or will be constructed, the developer will be required to meet certain standards that are in place from the DNR and state statutes. So one of those standards is during a peak or a stormwater event or storm event, the stormwater is conveyed to these ponds, and those peak flows that are there today will actually be reduced. So if in a 10-year event, a 20-year event, even a 100-year stormwater event, those peak flows that are currently coming across that property will be taken through these ponds, stored, and then regulated during those stormwater events to flow out at a reduced rate. So the water typically, I will tell you though, that the water will probably go towards the same areas. So probably still towards the wetlands, eventually, depending on different type of basins within that area, they will still flow those directions, but they will be reducing those flows. That might be coming towards your properties at this point in time.
No more stormwater can leave the property after the development than did before the development.
That is correct.
Oh.
Yep.
Got it.
Well, it's,
No,
they
the
reduce-
law is, if we're following the state law, and we're not more restricted than state law, are we?
No.
Some communities are, we are not, and most communities are not. But the state law says the water has to leave at the same place and at the same rate.
Yeah.
But when you build roads and you build houses, let's not kid ourselves, there's more water. There's less places for the water. So that was a change in the law a few years ago, but that is the law, that they can send more water. They can't send it at any greater rate, and they can't send it in any different location than when it leaves now. Did I say that correctly?
That's correct, yeah.
And you say that they generally reduce it
Yes.
by the ponds,
Mhm.
but I just wanted to make it clear, because I get that all the time. Are we gonna get more water? Well, you should notice that you're getting more water, but let's not kid ourselves. You can't build houses and roads and take away some of the permeable, soils in order, but that's what the ponds are being built for, to replace that soil that they can't, but they can't send it any faster, and it can't come at any rate faster.
But this could be an issue then because we have a pond that has no outflow. So
A
this could be
neighboring
one of
pond,
those
yeah.
times where
But
we have
if they're going to that pond, I don't know that any of the water, until you see the plan, you don't know if any of the water goes to that
Right, but
pond.
but with these comments, that's something that's gonna need to be looked at.
And
That's a way to-
that's one of the notes that I made, knowing that there's no outfall for that pond and they're currently pumping it at their own dollar or whatever it might end up being, to take a look at what's being sent that way, or obviously if we can redirect it to a different area.
Just wanna make sure we have these discussions before a stormwater management plan is completed and
Yep, absolutely.
you have to pay again, and have it
That's,
redone.
that's why I said it was great.
We'll have
hear
to
this.
look at, because the comment that was made was that pond receives groundwater, not surface water.
Yeah, and that's another
The
thing I
impacts
noticed.
on that.
Yeah, so that's not a wet pond that they're proposing. It doesn't look like it's a wet pond that they're proposing there. They're calling it a basin, which to me, makes it seem as though it might be an infiltration basin, which means that water is seeping into the ground and adding to, the groundwater
Right.
that's there.
go over to the.
Yeah, which may go there. So that's one thing that we'll have to look at, and hopefully any receiving waters there, we could send a different direction, so.
I don't know if anyone wants to make any comments.
Thanks. I appreciate Mr. Lysis
Newman.
coming. I'm sorry, Brian Lindgren, Newman Developments. As many times as I've done this, I do forget that step. Yeah, I think it's just a little too early. I appreciate the comments in the background on stormwater. In addition to village staff reviewing plans, I think it's important to note that Waukesha County takes jurisdiction over stormwater here, and they are very thorough. They may have some familiarity with some of the background stuff that's gone on off of Wilderness Way and otherwise, but those are all things that we'll take into account. And you are correct, Mr. Macy. It's compensated for rate, but not volume.
We had another comment about the cul-de-sac. Is that currently a temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Wilderness?
It shows on the concept plan, there it is.
Yeah, temporary. So the cul-de-sac in Wilderness Way, while it is a cul-de-sac, is actually a temporary cul-de-sac. It was never intended to be a cul-de-sac forever. So there's actually is no easements granted, or there's no right of way granted there for it. It's just some temporary easements. So
The same on Brighton Drive.
that's what we're kind of looking at up on the top of Edgewater also is what to do with some of that. Because if you don't continue it, then our code requires that it actually be a formal cul-de-sac, and that's not actually what it's set up for right now. That comes at the next stage. Tonight is a reason. Typically, you talk about a lot of this stuff at a rezone because people want to know what's going on, but everything that's talked about tonight could change. There's no requirement in this rezone tonight that any of this stuff that's talked about tonight comes forward in the CSM, just so everybody's aware. So it's behoove everybody to take these comments into consideration, but it does not mean that it's gonna be into the CSM, so you need to watch the next stage. So water, we talked about that. The cul-de-sac. All right, I'll reopen again then for public comments, sir. Sure.
My name is Dennis Volt. I'm at North 69, West 25900 Brighton Drive. My question was, why would they be considering getting rid of the two cul-de-sacs on both sides? Why wouldn't it just be left the way it is? I'm wondering what, I mean, obviously there's a plan here and somebody's deciding to do that, and I'm just wondering why.
Well, when we close public comments, then we'll come back. All right, does anyone else wish to speak?
Dawn Bowens, N68 W26, 62-3 Wilderness Way. I live on Wilderness Way, which is a dead-end road in Thousand Oaks subdivision. I am against a through street on our cul-de-sac. I know you just said that it was a temporary cul-de-sac, but I've been there almost 50 years. I never heard of that. We bought the house because it was on a dead-end road. We're just totally against it. Kids learn how to ride their bikes there. People walk their dogs. It's just not necessary or wanted by myself or our neighbors. Thank you.
Who else wish to speak?
If anyone on Zoom has questions or comments for this public hearing, please use the raise hand function. No hands raised on Zoom.
As far as the cul-de-sacs go, the reason they're set up as temporary cul-de-sacs, and I realize it's, could be 50 years, but was that it was always envisioned at some point this would be a development and they would go through. Connecting the roads and the subdivisions, you can't have roads go that far and not have another outlet. Our code actually doesn't allow that. There are times where it's waived, but you'd essentially be putting another road in and cul-de-sacing it on both ends, which is not good planning. Brighton Drive, I don't even know if there's a cul-de-sac up on that one. Oh, there is a little one there, yeah, which is also a temporary one there too. It's always a tough discussion that gets talked about, but I can tell you, looking at these plans, that when this was all put together, these were envisioned that they would go through at some point. And buying a house next to one and if they don't tell you that with your realtor, either they didn't know or they didn't look or they didn't want you to know. That's the only three options on that, unfortunately. It's no easy way to put that than just to say it. Does anyone else have any comments from the commission? Rob? Sean, Sherry, Joe,
No.
Brian, no other comments? Anything else from staff? We'll open up the comments one more time if anyone wishes to make any more comments. Again, this is on the rezone.
Or do you want me to ask a specific question?
You want to step up to the mic if you just, then whatever question you may have.
James Enters, N68W26614 Wilderness Way. I just wanted to follow up from you, if you don't mind.
Well, talk to us. Yeah,
Okay,
you gotta talk to us, then we'll ask him.
Okay.
It's weird, but it's keeps the peace.
Understood. I would like a comment if he's willing to, the representative from Newman, because I know that they run into this all the time. I think that there's a way to appease both sides.
I'm gonna let you know the village is gonna require him to put those cul-de-sacs in.
I'm sorry.
A village is gonna require him to connect those cul-de-sacs. Lisbon is gonna require this in our.
Okay,
planning.
there's no alternative that they could provide other than that.
Once that plan comes forward in the CSM, that's really when a lot of that gets discussed.
Okay.
Um,
I think with him being, with Newman being the developer, I'd like to hear from them if they've had experience in
and
the
you can ask the
past.
question, we can have them come up.
That would be
Yeah.
my, just if they've had experience in the past with that and if there's a way around it somehow. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I understand your concerns. I know what it's like and I've seen these roads all over the place. But, you know, they're intended to go through, so I'll echo what President Osterman said. Whether or not we propose a plan that connects them, it's smart for emergency purposes and many other reasons to have them go through. And in this case, sounds like we're gonna be directed to connect them.
And I just wanted to state that it's not always the developer, hey, I want to put these roads through. It's when the village does a plan and they plan the roads to go through, the village does require that at some point to happen. If you want to talk, you can come up to them. We were on Zoom, so.
I don't know if that was answered, specifically, why are we connecting?
You're wondering why the roads are being
Why is the
connected?
village requiring it to be connected?
Emergency services, more exits and more access.
Point to be
So you have
addressed.
another point of access on the Silver Spring. It's just good planning to try and connect these. It actually helps for subdivision connectivity too, when people are walking. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why you do this.
I just brought up on the screen as an example, this is from the county's website. I had trouble opening the one for your subdivision, unfortunately, on Thousand Oaks, but this is for across the way for Brighton Estates. So this is the original subdivision plat for Brighton Estates. It's a little hard to see, but this area here shows the temporary cul-de-sac area. And there's a note here that says 120-foot diameter temporary cul-de-sac to be terminated if road is extended to west. Meaning that when this subdivision was platted, the intent was that that road would extend someday. You know, the developer of that subdivision and the developer of your subdivision both saw this farmland in the middle and thought that one day, when Lisbon continues to grow, there would be a continuation of those roads. And so, the discussion that was had earlier was that had those intended to be a permanent cul-de-sac, there would have been a different standard for their development. A permanent cul-de-sac requires a larger area for the turnaround of vehicles and things like that. So there's a road standard for them if they're going to be a permanent cul-de-sac. Some of the roads that are proposed in the concept plan are for permanent cul-de-sacs. Those are larger and a little different. So the way that this temporary cul-de-sac easement works, there's a little bit of land on each parcel that has this easement on the parcel on the north side of the road and the parcel on the south side of the road. Again, it's intended to be temporary. There was a comment, I've been in this subdivision for 50 years. There's, nothing's been developed yet. The village doesn't make people develop their farmland. Somebody does that when they're ready to sell to a developer who's interested in it. And so we've reached that point with the Horns parcel. Because of things like sound planning, from a staff perspective, we're recommending that these roads be connected through. They were intended to be connected when these subdivisions were originally platted. It may not have been brought to everyone's attention that that was the plan at the time. Again, I'll be the first to admit that a lot of my job is educating the public about things like plats and plats of survey and getting people the good information that maybe they didn't get when they purchased a home. I didn't get a plat of survey when I bought my house. I didn't get the subdivision plat. I'm, I guess, unique in that I know where to find that information, which is why I enjoy helping others find it, because I think it's useful information to know. But when it comes to a proposed new development, one of the first things we look at is, are there points of connection to be made within the existing street network? And if there are, we encourage that to be done. And as Chairman Osterman mentioned, there are waivers that can be requested to not have to make those connections, but this isn't unique to this particular development. We've had these conversations in the recent past with a proposed subdivision called October Fields, which is in a little different area of the village. And in that case, there were two dead-ended streets that went to a subdivision to the east of that proposed development. The folks on the end of those temporary cul-de-sacs also did not want the roads to go through, but following sound planning, the village staff recommended that they go through, and the developer ended up extending those roads through. So the way that everything was set up was that the road would go through at some point. If the road were not to go through, if there was never going to be a development, then something would need to be done to provide a permanent terminus for those roads, because there can't be a permanent temporary cul-de-sac.
And
Otherwise, we would be taking land.
looking at the property to the south on Wilderness Way, I believe the setback requirement is 50 feet. We have an easement there because it's only 44 feet from the road. Actually, if that were to become a permanent cul-de-sac, that house would become a non-conforming, actually. If something were to happen to the home, I don't believe it would be able to be rebuilt there.
That's another issue that came up with the October Field subdivision when we were looking at the potentiality of not extending one of those roads and providing a cul-de-sac.
The north side is fine, but the south one is, the cul-de-sac actually is pretty close to the home, which in a temporary easement situation is one thing, but in a permanent, it's a different deal. We've had a lot of these. I mean, like quite a few of these, because there's been times that there wasn't good planning in some areas, and other areas there was. This actually is one of the better ones, to be honest with you, but so.
Thank you for the very thorough explanation. 2 follow-up questions, because there was a couple of strong statements made. One by the representative from Newman saying that if they were being directed to, like told to, and then I don't know if it was from you or somebody else that said it is an absolute requirement statutorily. Is there any discretion with the village when it comes to this? Or is there a statute that requires that or ordinance?
I don't think it's going to be something directed by the state. I think we're going to look at our past plans. You know, we've got our comprehensive plan that helps inform future decisions, and the land use plan helps inform the density of an area. The village does not have an official map that shows future road connections. Some communities do. Yet, we don't have one yet. At some point, we will likely have that in the future. So again, what we look at to help guide these decisions is past practice, you know, what's been done in the past with development in these areas. So we go back when we have a planner appointment for somebody who's thinking about doing something like this at the very early inkling stages of an idea. And we look at what are the existing conditions and what's previously been done. So again, when we were initially approached by Newman that they were contemplating a development at this location, we went back and looked at these adjacent subdivision plats and how those were left. And again, when we find notes like this that says that these are temporary cul-de-sacs and to be removed if or when the road is extended, then we recommend that the roads be extended. So the other thing that we think about, and this is something that came up at the concept plan for those of you that weren't able to attend that plan commission meeting on January 22nd, we talked about what are the ingress and egress points for the Thousand Oaks subdivision and how that has developed over the years. And so there's not as much in and out for that subdivision as would maybe be desired, because I don't believe there's a true egress point to the north. Everything's either coming south or because of recent developments, there are some outlets to the west and on Lake 5. And so there's a lot of homes in that area that have a limited number of ingress and egress points. And for emergency service reasons, and also other village services, but especially emergency services, you want to have duplicated ingress and egress opportunities. You know, should something be blocked, just a car accident at the entrance, or who knows, is there a secondary way to get in or out? And that's one of the reasons why there's limitations on how far municipalities are willing to allow cul-de-sacs to be extended, because you need to take into consideration how long a fire hose can go from a truck and how close are they going to be able to get, you know, to that. So to be able to have multiple points in and out for a subdivision like this is, again, a sound planning practice for those reasons.
Not statutory.
Not statutory,
Okay,
but
that was
also
a long answer that.
But the other thing that comes up is traffic. So, you know, it provides another way for people within, you know, you guys are wondering if traffic's going to increase for you with people from this subdivision going past your homes to the Thousand Oaks inlet. But it works the other way too. Folks from your subdivision might go this way to their ingress and egress point that's going to open up on Silver Spring. So there's not going to be a restriction. People will be able to flow through however their path takes them on their way to or from work or on their way home, you know.
We don't like flow.
Anyway, I mean,
Thank you for that explanation. What I gathered was there is room for discretion to be had. I think.
It is not an absolute requirement.
Okay.
That anywhere in the law that says you have to do this. It's just
Understood.
with the planning.
But you need to understand, there's a huge problem if they try to keep the temporary cul-de-sac. It's on somebody's property. That's a huge legal problem for the village if they don't put this through. So you can say there's discretion, but it's not discretion without serious problems.
And this issue is brought to light because of the new development, because obviously it's been fine for the past 50, 60, whatever years. Because there's a new development.
It's a temporary cul-de-sac on somebody's property, and when the chance to take rid of the temporary cul-de-sac, you have to get rid of the temporary cul-de-sac.
Once,
Somehow you have to get rid of it, either by putting a through road or some other way. That's going to be a problem and very expensive.
And you say, when you say you, again, you're using very strong words, saying you have to, that's by ordinance or you're just saying that's best practice?
so if that property is developed and we don't terminate that cul-de-sac, there's gonna be lawsuits. It's gonna go bad because you can't keep that way forever.
The one on would be the
Well,
south side of the,
Period, because they're actually in the north end. You're the last home on the north side?
I'm not, that
Or
just
that's
told.
not, okay. So there's home on the top, north and the south. Both
Yep.
those homes have temporary easements on them. And if they're, I know it's 50-year easement, but it's still an easement temporary. Once that property is developed to the east of there, and if we don't get rid of those easements, there's gonna be lawsuits eventually at some point, because essentially you're taking property without giving money for it. And then if we do put a cul-de-sac in there, we're gonna make some of these lots non-conforming, because it's not necessarily that cul-de-sac meets our code. I don't know if it does or doesn't, but there's a lot to it.
Okay, that was, I appreciate your time that was a very good explanation, because I was, in my head, it's like you bring up the ingress, egress for the development. Let's add another one further east, one further west, and then that takes away that problem. But now I can kind of understand where you're coming from, so.
This problem, problem or not problem, but it was created a long time ago, before anyone that's even here was here. So.
Okay,
all right,
thank you for your time.
thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for this public hearing tonight?
Anyone on Zoom wants to comment, please use the raise hand function. No hands on Zoom.
Just, this will be real quick. Ray Growth, W265N 6944 Thousand Oaks Drive. I understand that Wilderness Way is gonna go through, not arguing that. But since we pump our pond through that road right now, we're gonna need to be given access or something, or a different place to pump to, because that's the only place we have to pump to at this point. So as long as you have
And we-
that in mind.
And everyone's heard those comments
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
okay, thank you. Anyone else? Close the public hearing number 4 and close the public hearings at 7:33. All right, into the regular plan commission meeting. We have item 3, which is citizens' comments. Does anyone have any comments or anything on the agenda tonight? Zoom. No. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the January 22nd, 2025 plan commission meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment on the minutes.
Okay.
On page 3,
Joe, hang on a sec, I can't hear you.
okay.
Okay, go ahead.
On, item C on page 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, that should be Brighton Estates, not Brighton State. That's the only
Got it.
comment I have.
I will make that change.
And I will move for the adoption of the minutes as presented with that correction.
Just a second. Donald, second. All right, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. You know, is Paula still on? Let her know she doesn't have to. Stick around.
Thanks, Joe. I'll say goodnight.
Thanks, Paula. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Right, item 5, new business, A, discussion and necessary action and request by Nolan and Revitsky? Sorry. To amend the existing approvals for the Red Wing Kennels located at North 51 West 22289 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0288.995 to reflect new ownership in the business and property. All right, we've had the public hearing tonight on the conditional use.
Do you want a separate motion on the parking waiver?
That'll be part of the site plan. Or is that part of the, I'm sorry, what's the parking lot waiver? That'd be
The waiver for parking.
Want a separate motion?
Okay,
that, yeah.
then I'll make a motion to grant the requested waiver for the proposed off-street parking.
I'll second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor,
Carrie, you were the second?
Yes.
Thank you.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, then we have the conditional use permit as it stands. Any discussion on that?
I would just bring up that the previous conditional use permit had hours of operation as one of the conditions. They're currently outlined in the plan of operation as part of the site plan of operation. And so if the plan commission feels it's important enough, you could make that a condition of the CU. It's not in the draft conditions that are in front of you currently. It's just part of the site plan of operation currently.
That's something we could even change being we're out there.
Sure, that's,
That's okay.
anything that's in, as many of you know, especially those who've been around for a while, but I'd like to reiterate, the conditional use conditions can't be changed for the most part unless you hold a public hearing. So you put the most important stuff in the conditional use, the things that you really want to make sure are gonna be pretty, rock solid. If it's less significant, like Orin's saying, most oftentimes hours of operation are in the site plan and plan of operation. So if there is a modification for some reason, you don't necessarily have to go to public hearing. Still has to come back for your approval, but you don't necessarily. So we always like to say there's sort of a hierarchy. If it's really, really important, you put it in the rezoning. If there's a rezoning and then conditional use, if there's a conditional use and then site plan of operation. All Orin is saying, I think, and I don't put words in his mouth, is the current practice in the industry is to put hours of operation in the plan of operation instead of the CU.
Right. If it's, where I've seen it in a CU is where it's something, that became important, maybe due to comments at a public hearing or to the nature of the business. And so that's why I bring it up.
The question is, you want to keep right now, the hours of operation are in the original CU, correct? Do you want to keep them in the CU portion of it? So if they want to change the hours of operation, they have to come back to have a public
Yeah.
hearing? Or do you want to move them to the site plan of operation where it would not require a public hearing to come back?
I'd put it in the plan of operation.
I think, yeah.
Plan of operation?
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Everybody's in agreement on plan of operation? All right, so then we'd be looking to approve the conditional use permit without having the hours
Correct.
in there. All right, is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, so the motion is to approve the conditional use permit for the animal boarding place and commercial kennel, correct? Everybody's on the same page? As
Correct.
stated in all the information in the public hearing, and we are not putting the hours of operation in the CU. All right, any discussion further? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, then the site plan of operation for animal boarding place and commercial kennel. Any discussion further on that? Or nothing? Anything else from the commission?
Well, I think the record should reflect, as we did at the public hearing, and maybe the minutes, they're not making any changes to the operation. Is that my understanding? They're just,
Just the
the name is
Correct.
being changed and the hours I don't even think are changing. They just moved from CU.
Same name, new owners. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, for the public and for the record, in case there was any questions later on, I always like to get that in the record.
Is there a motion on the site plan?
I'll make that motion that we approve the site plan with the hours of operation in it.
You can just approve the site plan of operation.
Okay. That's my motion.
Is there a second? All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimous. All right, item B, discussion necessary action on the request by applicant Ryan Fritsch, New Developments, on behalf of owners David and Mary Horn to rezone the property 74-acre portion of the parcel located at North 68 West 26098 Silver Spring Drive, LSPT 0221.999.017 from the A10 Agricultural District to the R2 Single Family Residential District, and recommendation of the Village Board of the same. All right, discussion on the rezone. Anything from the commission at this time? Rob, anything? Sean? Sherry? Joe?
No.
Brian?
No.
Becky?
No.
Is there anything else from staff on this?
Yeah, I was able to finally open the final plat for the Thousand Oaks subdivision on the county's GIS website. And it does have the same note that I read from the Brighton Estates subdivision on the east side, So the Thousand Oaks subdivision has a note that says 120-foot diameter temporary cul-de-sac to be terminated upon extension of road to east.
Comments? Is there a motion on the rezone?
I'll move to approve the rezone with planner's comments.
Brian to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimous. Item C is discussion necessary action regarding the proposed amendments to the various sections of the Lisbon Municipal Code, Chapter 11 zoning and recommendation of the village board of the same. All right, we had the public hearing for this tonight. Any other questions or comments on the Chapter 11? We've been through this. We beat it up and down, left and right,
And sideways.
and sideways. Yeah. Any comments from staff?
Just that my recommended motion is for there to be subject to technical corrections. You know, I want to get the table of contents, page numbers, cross references to various sections within the thing, make sure that those are all buttoned up. I'm not talking about changing anything substantial. If I find a spelling or grammatical error, I'd like to be able to fix that, those types of things.
Motion into regarding the proposed amendments to the various section of Lisbon Municipal Code, Chapter 11 zoning and recommendation of village board, subject to technical corrections to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Brian got it. Any other discussion?
I think we should note for the record, this is a comprehensive rezoning. That means that notices are not sent to every individual in the community. There's a specific state statute that allows you to do it under this, and the actual ordinance will represent all of that. We've been directed to put the ordinance together, and it will show that this is a comprehensive rezoning.
Thank you, John. Everybody understands?
What's the time frame on the codification? Probably a couple months? Or
They
just-
do it every quarter, so when I submit this, it'll probably be like late March.
Okay, so that's when they'll go into effect, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it goes into
After
effect
corrections.
after the village board adopts it and then publishing and posting as required by law. It can be the next day after the board meeting.
Yep.
So we don't wait till it gets in the book. It becomes law when the
Okay.
effective date.
But it will show up online in the new
The
form.
day after it's approved by the board.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, discussion and necessary action regarding proposed amendments to the various section of the Lisbon Municipal Code, Chapter 12, Land Division and Development, and recommendation to the village board of the same.
I'd have the same comments that Orin had. Whenever you have a track change document and then you have a clean version, there's always little things that are missed. And then I believe, Joe, you had a couple of small changes to Chapter 12. If you want to just send those via email, and then we'll make those changes as well.
Motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to adopt chapter 12 as presented with the technical corrections as noted by the administrator.
Recommendation of the village board.
The recommendation to the village board.
Second.
Also,
Second by Sherry. Any other discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, planner report.
We got a doozy for our next meeting here. We're gonna have 2 comprehensive master plan amendments. We've got a CSM. We've got a concept review. We've got a site plan of operation amendment. And we've got another site plan of operation amendment.
and we
And
have
then-
6 things that we're bumping to April.
Yeah, we got so many things that we're gonna put a couple of things in April, so.
Oh, I'd like to get them done in March.
So, so if anybody's thinking of planning a spring break trip around our next meeting time, let us know so that we make sure we have a quorum for all these items.
I believe Becky will not be here for our next meeting,
That's right.
which means this will mark the end of her tenure on the Plan Commission at this time. So,
This is a sad day for me.
It is a sad day for me.
We're gonna have to call a special meeting before she leaves.
she may veto that. Thank you, Becky, for your time on the Plan Commission. Obviously, we'll have another chance to thank you for your time on the board, but it's been a privilege sitting next to you and appreciate you not swatting at me during some of the meetings when you probably wanted to. So thank you.
You are welcome.
All right, next item is adjournment. You want to make that motion, Becky?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are out at 7:47.
Minutes can take or. That didn't hurt,
Good
did it?
job, kiddo.
I want to know the ramifications